All right, all right. We are going live for the first time on Make Music Income. I call it Make Music Income Live. Thursdays live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Central Time. Sorry for you West Coasters. You're just going to have to get up early and get into the chat. So I want to make sure I turn this down, because I don't need to hear that echo over there. But I see I'm on with my iPad up there. So welcome to Make Music Live, everybody. If you are here, if you can see me, if you can hear me, please say something in the chat. That way I can watch that and respond to you as I talk about what I want to talk about today, which is my sync licensing strategy. And I'm going to be talking about that throughout the day. Hey, Stevie B, thanks for that first comment. That's only fitting that Stevie B should be the first person commenting on the first chat. Good, loud and clear. That's a good thing. Also recording this on Logic. I don't know if I need to do that or not, but I'm doing it anyway. So today I'm going to be talking about and answering questions on my sync licensing strategy. So this is kind of just telling you everything that I know about sync licensing, even if it's completely wrong. It's my channel, and I can be as wrong as I want to be, or as smart, or as wrong-headed. And that's kind of the beauty of having your own channel and saying all the things that I say. And so thanks for everybody who's watching this right now live and who's going to watch this later. So this is the first time I've done this, and I'm kind of excited to present this, but I want to do this in a different way than a lot of the lives that I see where people are kind of just answering questions only. I want to also make sure I give really good information on these Thursday live broadcasts. So this is kind of the way it's going to work. I'm going to read, kind of go through my script as I do in a normal video. And I'll also be paying attention to the comments. I've got them right here in front of me. And if a comment comes up as I'm going along that has something to do with what I'm saying, I'll answer it right away. Otherwise, I'm gonna get through the first bit here of what I want to say, of the information I want to kind of give you today. And then from there, I'll stop every now and then and answer any questions if you have them. So make sure you throw up questions if you got them. And so excited that you're here. Thanks so much for being here. All right, so I'm going to try to stick to my script and not go down rabbit holes, because as you know, I am want to go down rabbit holes, and I'm going to try not to today. All right, so we'll see if this works. It may not. Oh, and also be sure to stick around to the end, because I'm basically going to lay out the big secret way to find these exclusive music libraries and pitch to them, because everybody asks me that question all the time about sync licensing. The first thing they ask me is, how do I find sync libraries? And I'm going to be talking about that towards the end and reveal the big secret way to do this. So we'll talk about that when we get there. So thanks again for being here. Says 12 people. That's awesome. All right, so let me go ahead and get started in this, unless anybody has any questions up front. So I know I haven't talked specifically about sync licensing for a while on this channel. Now, we talk about it all the time in our mastermind, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But Steve and I talk about this in our podcast. And if you want to see one of our podcast episodes, you can go right here and see one of our podcast episodes. But not right now, but when this thing airs and I'm able to put the links up there, you'll be able to see it. But we talk about it, but we both have limited experience there. And so in this video, I kind of wanted to remind you what sync licensing is, in my opinion, and how it's working for me and where I am in it right now, and what I'm working on right now for sync, and then what I am doing in the future as making that kind of hopefully my future income, basically. To be honest, I think sync licensing is perhaps the best long-term strategy for making music income. And I think I've said that from day one. As a matter of fact, my very first video, the very first thing I talked about was sync licensing. And so it's certainly the first number one thing that I am thinking about and that I think you should be thinking about too. So I want to talk more about that. I have another interview next week that we're going to talk about it. So again, welcome if you're live. If you're live and you have a question, or even if you're just live and you want to say hello, just say hello in the chat. I'd love to see who's here and see what you need, what you want to find out about what I'm talking about. So, we talk about a lot of things on this channel. We talk about stock music, we talk about sync licensing, we talk about Spotify and DSPs, we talk about artist strategies, we talk about music publishing, we talk about music production, and lots more. And there's way more than that, but that's just the first 6 or so that I started with when I started this channel. And there is a lot coming on all of these things, including a chat next week with Dave Croft of 52 Qs about his life as a sync composer. So we're going to have some more sync stuff next week in that interview. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you happen to have just found this live and you're not subscribed. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel and be part of these future things that are coming about. But got more sync licensing intel for you. So if you're new here or just dipping your toes into music income with music, then make sure you check out. Also, I've got some free content for you, and I'll have that in the description below, and you can find that at MakeMusicIncome.com/free. And in that, there's a ebook called 50 Ways to Make Music Income, kind of a PDF, quick read, but kind of might be helpful to you about opening your mind up to ways to make music income. And then also I have a book called, if you're trying to get started in stock music licensing, called How to Upload to Pond 5. And again, both of those you'll find in the notes below after this is over, but you can go right now to MakeMusicIncome.com/free. It's MakeMusicIncome.com/free. And you can find those things there. Okay, let me stop to say hello to a few people. Jose Blues 9, hello, welcome. Malik's Music, hey man, good to see you. John Brian Evans, hi all, thanks for coming, John, appreciate it. So great to have people here today, and this is just kind of something I haven't done before on this channel, but I wanted to, when you're creating content for a channel, sometimes it's hard to have consistency because you're in my case, I'm a busy producer. I'm producing all the time, and I am all the time trying to figure out how to spend my time doing different things. And so video making really comes from, you have to shoot it, and then I'm a big editor. I like to edit my stuff to death, as you probably know if you've watched my videos. So it takes a while to get them edited. And so the problem for me is consistency. Hey, Love 3, what's up? Thanks for being here. And so I end up only getting one great video a week done, besides the podcast that Steve and I do, and we trade off putting that on our channels every other week. So I'm hoping that this live Thursday thing can become kind of my version of a live stream. Steve does live streams all the time, and this might be my version of it, but I want to make sure I have a topic to talk about. And today's topic is sync licensing, and probably there's going to be more days that we talk sync licensing, but in this very first live, I wanted it to be about sync licensing because, to be honest, I think sync licensing might be the main thing that I'm personally focused on in making music income. Strangely, the second one might end up being teaching at some extent, but right now it's certainly sync licensing. Stock licensing is another passive income I have. This channel is another income now that I have. You just saw last week, I put a video up about the ways I'm making money in 2022, or some things I'm trying for 2022. But I wanted to talk about my definition of sync licensing and what I'm doing in it. So to me, sync licensing really involves writing music that can be used. It's music for use. And stock music is also music for use. But we're not talking about stock today. We talk enough about stock. Steve and I have been talking about it to death, and there's a lot of videos on my channel about it. Today, we're focused squarely on sync licensing. Hey, John Mayer, good to see you. Thanks for being here. And so today we're really going to focus on sync. And to me, sync licensing is about quality music and getting that to people who make decisions about using that music for TV, film, trailers, advertising, video games, and much more. And so that to me is really what I am focused on personally, as far as sync licensing, making great music, and then getting it out to people who can use it. And I do that through music libraries. Now, there's different types of sync, and so I want to get into that a little bit. And first, I want to talk about songs for sync. And almost every television show or movie looking for music has what is called a music supervisor. Now, this is a person or team who is tasked with finding the right music for a scene, for opening credits, for closing credits, or whatever they might need music for. So it might be background music playing on a jukebox in a TV show scene, and you hear that a lot. That's probably one of the bigger uses of that kind of thing. I'm just going to make sure that I've got, okay, good, cool there. Because I got my iPad right up here. I'm kind of watching the stream at the same time up here. So yeah, you're hearing music on a jukebox. You hear spooky music playing, some kind of spooky ambient type of stuff when the detectives find the bodies floating down the river, or it could be a montage scene where there's a buildup of a love relationship or a grim background of some seedy character or great times in a relationship. To me, that's the kind of music that I prefer to make, songs that can be used in shows or movies or commercials or anything like that. Songs for use in scenes. And usually that's just a snippet. There's usually a few seconds of one of these used in a scene like that. So, but those snippets add up, and they add up in what we call upfronts, and they add up in what we call back end or PRO payments. So we'll get into that in a little while. Now, there's also sync and songs for advertising. And again, this is something that I like to do, and I do with a lot of my partners and clients, is we create songs that could be used in television commercials or car commercials or company commercials of some kind of advertising use. As a matter of fact, yesterday, I just had something that I pitched out. TV pays well for like scenes and things like that, TV shows, and usually around 4 figures to 5 figures sometimes, depending on some of these TV shows have like budgets of 30 grand per episode, like on CBS or something like that. Hey, Matt Doug, thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here. Motion pictures can pay like 5 figures, but advertising is likely the best money in music licensing. Like a 60-second Apple spot could be a 6-figure payday. And this goes back to when I was working doing jingle work, and we were getting $3,000-$4,000 for 45 seconds of music, and I remember when that was a great income. And that all kind of tapered off after 9/11 hit. And yeah, I was in the studio back then working on jingles. I was working on a jingle on the day on 9/11, actually. And that was the last jingle I did, as it turned out. But the beauty in licensing is that many pop songs or lo-fi loops or indie folk happy clappy things can be used for ads. And ads can be big money. Myself and another co-writer had a company last year wanting to use one of our songs, and the buyout was almost 30 grand for one song. Now, it would have been a complete buyout. They would have owned it forever, but it would have been 30 grand that we would have split about. I also pitched a few minutes of solo piano rambling yesterday for an ad in the UK, I think, and that was like a $5,000 payout that I would split with the library that I submitted it with. So ads are a big deal, and ads are part of sync licensing, and um, it's just something that people don't think that much about. But if you've ever been involved in jingles or music for companies or anything like that, you know that it can be pretty big money. All right, so trailer music is a whole nother thing, and I have almost zero experience with this other than scoring some small films, and actually that's another category to itself. Trailer music is really more trailers for TV shows that are going to be on Netflix, trailers for movies, obviously, that you see in the movie cinemas when you go and they show coming attractions or whatever. There's trailers for games now. There's trailers for all sorts of stuff. This is an industry all to itself and a skill all to itself, I think. I've only done a little bit of this through the years. As a matter of fact, I've done some recently for Stevie B's Production Music Academy, as he has had some challenges and things like that. And so I've done a little bit of that, but this is not really my area or my focus necessarily, because I think the really great trailer guys are probably people who do a little bit more in the way of scoring. And that's another category similar to trailers. Composing directly to picture is what you see big names like John Williams of Star Wars fame, or Indiana Jones and Superman, and on and on and on. But it's a long list of what John Williams has done. But I have a feeling that music scoring is usually more of a higher job than something somebody is plucking out of a music library. I'm sure it's possible, but it's scoring is to picture. You are scoring specifically to picture. And so I think that's more of, again, a whole nother talent and not necessarily one that I'm interested in. So these are just a few of the types of music that are used in sync licensing and what I call music for use, or music used in film, television, advertising, and more. So does anybody have any questions about sync licensing as far as what it is, or what it kind of does, or if you've done it, or anybody in here that is currently doing any kind of sync licensing, working with libraries? I would love to know that in the comments if you want to talk about that. But this is fun. I'm having a good time, and I do want to announce today's sponsor. And today's sponsor of the video is the Music Licensing Mastermind that we have every week at noon on Mondays, and noon Eastern time. And we have about 10 or so composers that meet every Monday at noon. And all we do is talk about this. We talk about licensing. We talk about sync licensing mostly, but we also talk about stock licensing some. And so some of you watching, Steve has visited that before, and maybe some of you watching have been part of that before. But if you're interested in learning about more about the sync licensing mastermind that we have, you can just go to MakeMusicIncome.com/mastermind, and you can sign up to be part of that weekly Zoom meeting with me and with some other composers. We'd love to have you be part of that. And you can find that link below in the description once I get done with this and type out all those links. But you can just go to MakeMusicIncome.com and you can find all this stuff that I'm talking about. Okay, Noise Buffet, thanks for joining. Have you been syncing since 07? I've been literally syncing since 00, maybe even before that, but not syncing with television and film. You know, a lot of people ask me, and I ask myself, why didn't I get involved with music licensing back when I was started producing full-time back around 2000? And the answer is I really just thought that you'd have to live in Los Angeles to do that kind of thing, or wherever the productions were being made. But at that time, in 2000, it was either New York or Los Angeles, because I knew people in Nashville, and I didn't know much sync stuff that was going on in Nashville, and that's where I ended up working and doing most of my producing. But I would just imagine that stuff was going on in Los Angeles, and I thought, and maybe it was the fact that you had to be boots on the ground in Los Angeles or New York. I actually had a sync opportunity in New York in 2000 with a song that I had produced for a New York singer. and she had somebody who had started to get into this world, and he had a CBS movie of the week that needed a theme song, and so we were this close to getting that. Cool. Yeah, starting in 07 before pivoting to games and now brands. Now, when you talk about games, Noise Buffet, are you talking about like gaming on a PlayStation level, or like gaming on computers and phones and stuff like that, or all the above? But yeah, brand, like I talked about just a little while ago, brands and advertising. It's where the money is, but also in gaming, also in television and film. I still think this is the biggest income. You know, we can really get, and we just talked about the other day or yesterday about how we can get so focused in on what Motion Array is paying. Why didn't I make 5 more downloads yesterday and make 30 more cents? And we're really focusing on tiny, tiny bits of money when we could create things that are making, you know, thousands of dollars of money. And I think that's something we have to be careful of as composers. We have to be careful of our time. And so that's why my I guess you could say my stock music output has gone down a bit, because I'm really more focusing on working with my libraries that are going to be doing some bigger things. And so John Brian Evans says, what about a company's online videos available only to their subscribers? How does music for those videos fit into the sync world? A company's online videos. Well, I would guess they're bought out in the front end, John Brian, I would imagine. And that's where the money comes from. So in that case, there might not be a back end in a PRO or something, and it would just be a front end buyout type of thing. Noise Buffet says AAA to mobile and coin op. Cool. Cool. That's very cool. See, there are all sorts of ways to sync, to license your music. And today's talk is really more about that world. I mean, I think gaming is a very big part of licensing. As a matter of fact, I have a great interview that's coming up in 2 weeks with Steve Malin, who really focuses on game music, RPG, 2D, all sorts of stuff like that. So Noise Buffet, you may have heard of Steve before, but he really focuses on that stuff. But you know, game music also has its gaming music, also has its whole world of stock type of music that you can get to put in your games and stuff like that. But so there's a stock and a kind of high end and a low end of that too, it seems like, which is interesting. Okay, rabbit hole alert. We gotta move on here with what I'm talking about, because I'd like to stay about an hour on this today, tops. All right, so let me talk a little bit about where I am with music and how I kind of got started with all of this. When I found out about sync, and I was just listening to a podcast, and by the way, you can see my first video. I'll put it up here when I get this done, and I'll put the link up, or I'll put it in the links below. But if you go back in my videos, you'll find my first video on sync licensing and my story about how I got started with that. And I started to look at what kind of music was being used, and I was like, man, every kind of music is being used in sync licensing. But mainly what I heard they needed was very usable things like positive music, positive pop music, positive rock, and holiday music, and anything that could be used by any TV show or any movie or anything like that. And so that's what I started working on. I started reviving a lot of old material that I had, positive songs that I had written, love songs. And then I started working on a whole Christmas bunch of songs in a classical way, and also in kind of a old style Christmas way, kind of a retro way. And as it turns out, those ended up being the first 2 albums that I had signed with a library that is associated with Sony BMG. And I'm still working with them and staying very busy working with them. They're great. And again, that whole story is on the other video that I did, the very first sync licensing video that I did. You can watch that too. It's very silly. And so I had a lot of fun making that video. But, you know, that part of my life was like a turning point. That was about 4 to 5 years ago now, where I decided to make a shift from producing back into composing full time. And I felt like composing full time was really where I wanted to be. So I was just starting a master's degree, and I was in music history because I love music history. But I went to the dean. I said, I'd like to really do this in composition. That's where my focus is. And he said, okay. And they just happened to have a new composition guy coming in, and that became my master's degree, which I finished about a year ago. And so I got to compose a lot of fun things. And along that time, that's when I really started getting serious about sync and writing. This is back 2018, 2019. I got involved with different companies that taught how to be involved with sync licensing, companies in Los Angeles, how to find music libraries, how to find music supervisors, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about that in a minute too. But um, I just got going in that, and I talk about that in my first sync video, which was basically I started creating a library of great high-end quality music. Now, I have a little bit of an advantage since my last 20 years have been spent working in Nashville with some of the greatest players and producers and singers and engineers and all that stuff and studios. And so I started working with them and my clients that saw the possibility of sync licensing. And I started to create these songs that could eventually be something I could pitch. And I pitched a little bit. I have what I call my first era of pitching and my second era of pitching. My first era of pitching was really kind of just here and there, and I'm a guy, a music supervisor, or this company or that company, and it's kind of hit or miss. And it wasn't until last year, no, 2 years ago, that I really got serious. I started finding some online channels, and one that we're going to talk about today. But certainly Jesse at Sync My Music was a great help, and we're going to talk about him a little later in this broadcast. But Jesse was really, and everything that he had to talk about sync just totally made sense to me. Even a video I just saw last night that he did, it just totally makes every light bulb just comes on with the way that he does things with as far as sync licensing is concerned. Um, so again, I just started writing all these songs, and when I found my first library that was really interested in my stuff, and I think we all have that hope that one day we're going to find that company that really believes in the music that we make, whether it's a publisher or a record label or whoever it is. But finding that person that believes in your music is like, oh, thank you. You know, I get it. They get what you're doing. They're picking up what you're throwing down. And I found that company, and so far I have had, let's see, where am I in this? I'm still very busy for this company. I've had 5 albums signed with them, and they are also the company I was talking about earlier that is associated with Sony BMG, and now I think Universal as well. And I've had 5 albums signed with them. They've requested a few other things. I'm currently working on a 10-song or more contemporary country album for them, but I've also signed positive pop, classical Christmas, Latin jazz, piano sonatas, and classic country to them. So just a diverse thing with them. And then I have another exclusive library, which I'll talk about later, that I have signed all sorts of things to, including jazz, classical, pop, Christmas, and much more, really. And then a third exclusive library that I signed a full album, actually way more than a full album, of contemporary country that involves many of my artists and my songwriters. And I also get briefs from this librarian. As a matter of fact, that was the one yesterday. I just sent out a piano thing for a pitch, for a brief. And so he will time to time come to me and said, and this one I had a couple days, but of course I waited till the last minute to put anything together, but something got sent out for that. So we'll just see on that. So I think you can see by this spread of genre music, and you'll also see this spread of genre music in my stock music because I just can't help it, that I work a little differently from most composers. I don't just focus on one or two or three genres that are my thing. And this probably comes from being a 20-year music producer for all sorts of different clients, from producing jazz to producing solo piano music, and those are two of my personal brands. I do some electronic stuff. I do classical. I've done tons of holiday through the years, certainly pop and rock and country. But my music is a mix of all these genres, and I like doing them all, and I've produced them all. So it helps when I'm producing songs for a library, and I'm thinking, okay, I want to produce a country album for this library. Let's write country songs or find country songs or find country artists and produce for this type of thing. So I also do gospel. That's really been a staple of mine as a producer for the last 20 or 25 years, really, even before I moved to Nashville. A lot of world music. I've had artists from Africa. I currently have an artist I'm working with in Africa, but also all over Europe and India and I mean, everywhere. I haven't had much from Asia, but mostly it's been Europe or Africa of my clients from outside the US, besides Canada, and some from South America as well. So I've had a lot of experience producing, and but like I said, you don't have to do all these styles. You can just focus on what you're good at. Um, because doing a lot of styles like I do can be a help and a hindrance, because I think on some libraries where they want to find a guy who is really great at one thing and just get the stuff they need from that guy who's great at that thing. I'm not that guy. I'm great. I'm good at a lot of things. I'm really good at a lot of things because I have a lot of great players and producers who are good in those things. It's very important that you find great people to work with that are great in a lot of different areas. And so I'm lucky to have that. So, um, any questions so far on genres or, um, as far as how this works with um, libraries? I'll tell you that I currently have somewhere between 100 and 150 songs spread out over my three libraries. I do have a fourth library that is interested in stuff from me. I just haven't sent them an album of stuff yet, but I'm working on a percussion album that's turning out pretty cool. It's got all sorts of different kinds of percussion things that we're doing with a drummer in Nashville. And hey, Mullet Kid. Mullet Kid says, do you find your sparse material piano solo sells better? You know what? Piano solo kills. I mean, it does great for me. I have had it do well in stock, but also I have, like I just talked about, I have a solo piano, um, piano sonatas thing. I just signed to a library. I have solo piano stuff that has done very well and made me a lot of money last year, especially in stock music. But solo piano, and then I have some solo piano that's got orchestral stuff on top of it that has done pretty well. So yeah, Mullet Kid, I have found that solo piano done well. Now make sure you're using good samples. If you're a solo piano guy, make sure you are using something like Keyscape or Ivory, or maybe one of the Native Instruments plugins. But I think Keyscape is a higher quality, Ivory as well, higher quality piano library, because they only focus on pianos, really. I mean, Keyscape focuses also on electric piano and different things, but that Yamaha Grand on Keyscape, and then Ivory has the American Grand. They have all sorts of high-end grand pianos. So if you are working on solo piano, make sure you have a great piano sample, because the Steinway Grand on Logic ain't going to cut it for high-end piano solo music, or play a real piano mic'd very well, but that's very difficult to do, in my opinion. Jose Blue says you sync different genres with different brands. Absolutely. I mean, that's the name of this whole game, is having all sorts of kinds of genres and music to have available, so that any brand that comes in to find out what's going on um, you need to have that stuff available, and that's why libraries, especially several of the libraries I'm working with, they want all sorts of different stuff from me. Crucial Music, which is a non-exclusive music library, has signed 5 things from me, and they're all over the place. One's folk, 2 are classical, and the other 2, one's Christmas and one's Halloween. So these companies need all kinds of music, all kinds of genres to pitch to all kinds of brands. So absolutely. Now, not everybody is able or wants to do that kind of thing. They don't wanna do lots of genres. They love their rock genre, or they love their pop genre, or whatever. Steve B says, "Jesse put out a great video a little while ago about most syncable genres." Yep, he sure does. And now I will say that that's from his perspective as a person making all those specific genres, and that's what works for him. And one of the reasons I started this channel was not to, like, say that what Jesse was saying or Daniel was saying or Stevie was saying was wrong or different. The only reason I started my channel was to talk about what is working for me, and what is working for me is multiple genres, multiple libraries, multiple income streams. That's how I've made my living for 20 years, feeding my family sometimes, and I've had at least half of those have been 6-figure years. A lot of it came from production, which is a whole nother area we're going to get into on this channel about how to build a production music business. That's coming. I mean, I haven't even got to that yet. I mean, we're talking sync licensing, which is sync and stock have been the main things we've talked about on this channel, and I'd love to talk about more things, but sync is, as a composer, is kind of my focus. Let me catch up here. Mullet Kid said, "When did you apply to libraries? When did you follow the sync your music approach, where you applied to like 2 specific libraries at a time and wait for a couple of weeks, or did you hit up more at a time?" It's a great question. Um, the answer to that is I applied. I started following Jesse's kind of apply to libraries thing at the end of 2019, probably. Yeah, 29, well, or 2020. I guess it was at the end of 2020. And that's when I made several good relationships, but got basically the library that was interested in my stuff. And a couple other libraries replied back nicely. Now, that's a little risky because you got to be careful. I submitted the same songs to 5 libraries. Now, some people on one hand will say, "Oh, don't do that, because what if all those libraries want those songs?" And then you got to tell somebody no. And then you've got other people who say, "Hey, that's just the business. If people don't get it, they don't get it." So yeah, and I know Jesse talks about having 1 to 2 libraries. Personally, for me, I have 3 libraries, and that's not even enough, because my main library, that has signed the most stuff, they don't want everything all the time. I will come up with albums all the time, and he'll say, "That's not what I need." And then I'll go to the next library that I have, and they're not interested either. And I have another library that's more boutique, and he only wants certain things. And then I have a third library, and they don't say yes to everything. So I could use a fourth library, maybe a fifth library, as far as I'm concerned. But I am a high output guy. If you're not a high output person, you may want to do more. Steve says rock, pop, hip hop, orchestra trailer, and overall high energy, high tempo music. Yeah. I don't have any doubts that that's true. However, in my experience, I've also had Christmas music, classical Christmas album taken in by a library. I've also had a piano sonatas library be taken in. I've had a old country album be taken in. So while I don't doubt that that Jesse does well with all those things, he will also tell you that he only really talks about the ones on his channel that he's done well with himself. And I think that's important to know. And man, the sun must have come out because I look really bright. Oh no, I don't. Okay, good. Um, so let me catch up here. Chris Corey says, "What hope is there for music in a minor key? Any particular market areas better suited to this?" Oh, I think there's a lot of hope for minor key music, Chris. I mean, there's a lot of sad movie scenes out there, and so I don't think it's only about um, you know, I just don't think it's only about positive music. I think there's plenty of room for minor key music, especially when you're writing in solo piano music, or you're writing score type stuff, or you're writing trailer type stuff. So yeah, minor key is not out of bounds. And you know what? When I first started this, I wrote a note to myself in maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, said, "Hey, if you're going to do this is not like work." I've been working for 20 plus years for clients, actually back into the 90s for clients. I don't want to make music that is somebody else's, what somebody else wants. That's why briefs are harder for me than just writing albums I want to write and pitching them, because I don't want to do things that don't come naturally to me. So if minor music comes naturally to you, then do it and find the company in the library that needs that. But you might want to organize those into a genre of some kind, like piano music, minor piano music, or whatever, and say for sad scenes or whatever, that kind of thing. Diamond District Studio says, I work as an audio engineer and occasionally write music. I would like to get my music on libraries. Where and how do I start? Many thanks. Well, yes, we would all like to do that. As a matter of fact, that's kind of what I'm talking about next here in my notes, is finding those libraries. And so I did have a quick thing I wanted to say about, well, let me finish a few little points I have here, but I have something coming up about how to get music on libraries, Diamond District. So hold on just one sec. Like I said before, my sync goals kind of go like this. I currently have about 100 to 150 songs spread out over 3 libraries, and my goal is to get at least that much more out. I think you've got to get to get sync licensing turning and churning, from what I understand. You've got to get towards the 1,000 songs thing, and I know that seems like a lot, but hey, I did 100 to 150 last year, and I think this year I can do about the same. And that's got to be the goal, continuing, so that in 5-10 years, I've got thousands of songs out there in multiple libraries. You have to play with as much television stuff that's out there, and all the opportunity that's out there, and all the people that you're competing with. You better have a lot to compete with. Um, and you better have a lot of, if you're going to play the library game where you're putting stuff in the libraries, I still think it's a numbers game. I think having more there that can be found and pushed by that library is the way to go, in my opinion. So my goal is to get another 100, 150 this year. And I think the key to sync is quality, but also quantity. And so, like I said, there's a lot of luck involved. If your goal is finding a music supervisor that needs what you want, well, that's a Jesse just did a great video about this. Should you go out and try to find a music supervisor that's putting stuff together for shows and try to pitch to them, or should you pitch to music libraries? And I'm with him that I think music libraries are the better way to go, because pitching one song at a time to one music supervisor for one use is a slow way to go to get your stuff in. Yeah, if you make that relationship and if you get that one song in, you might have a better chance to make more and keep your publishing. But it's just such a long game and bet that you're going to make that one thing that one music supervisor needs for that one song, for that one show. I don't do that. I've tried to do that a little bit, and I've just not found that as helpful and as good a bet, I think, as doing it the way that I'm doing it. So quality and quantity, and I think the quality thing is very important. People who've done stock music and gotten stuff into a Pond5 or Audio Jungle or even Motion Array might think that stuff is going to be good enough to pitch to these music libraries, and I'm afraid it may not be. It is a very competitive market out there. There's literally thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands, of composers and producers vying for these slots. Now, luckily, there's tens and thousands, if not 100,000 opportunities for music across all the television shows and networks and everything that's going on. So it's only continuing to explode. But I think you've got to have quality music. I think you've got to have a lot out there, and it has to be very high end. And sure, sometimes there's going to be solo piano things or lighter things that I can do all by myself in here. The piano sonatas thing I did in here, I found that music and put it together all by myself without having to employ other people. But I'd say 80% of what I'm sending out to music libraries involves my entire team of players in Nashville or singers across Nashville and Los Angeles and Orlando and other music centers. So my goal is to continue exactly what I've been doing, and I have albums lined up the wazoo to put out, whether they're requested or not. I'm doing them and pitch them to each library. Sometimes they may end up in non-exclusive libraries that I can pitch all the time, but and they may even end up in stock libraries. You never know. All right, let me catch up on some questions here. JMO says, I hear trailers can pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. Land one a year and sit pretty well. I guess so. Good luck with that. And I don't doubt that that's the truth. But trailers are very intensive music. It's not something you just sit and create in 10 minutes. That is weeks and weeks, if not months of work. And the people who do it right do it with great big samples, sometimes even real orchestras. So trailers can be expensive and or extensive to make. Diamond District says, do you provide one-on-one consultation on this topic? Absolutely, I do. You can find that at MakeMusicIncome.com/coaching, I think it is, or coach. Just go to MakeMusicIncome.com, and that's where my services are. But certainly, I do provide one-on-one coaching and do that with several people right now. Chris Corey says, do you think this market will stay buoyant for years to come? You know, I do. I actually do. I mean, Peacock, the television network, just started like last year, and it's already becoming a place that's got all this content, original content they're making. And Apple Music, Apple Plus, or whatever they call theirs, Disney's Plus has just started their network in the past few years and are putting all this original content out. There is so much original content video that needs music and soundtrack stuff behind it. I think it's going to be continuing to explode and going to be opportunity for us composers and producers for a long, long time. Mauricio, thank you for joining. Hi, Eric. How many songs should a record have to apply to a library? I think the logic is usually about 10 songs, but over 10 is not going to hurt you. Now, I do have some libraries. Now, this is one of those things where I'm glad I started a channel, because in my experience, it's all over the board. Now, Jesse on Sync My Music, who I love dearly, and I think he is the man and knows his stuff, will always say send a 10-song album. And I don't disagree with that. However, I have two other libraries who will take one song at a time or prefer 3 or 4 just to get a sense of a record before they take a full record. So here's what 10-song does for you. 10 songs automatically could get you a signing into a library. If they find 10 songs, they love them all, and they say, hey, that's ready for us to go with. We don't have to do anything except accept that 10 songs, and we've got another library. So yeah, 10 songs is probably the optimal for libraries looking to sign music, because boom, they can have it. But it's not the only way, in my experience, that I've got stuff signed. I have of the 3 different libraries I work with, they all work differently. But it doesn't hurt to have 10 songs. And if you're just pitching for the first time, I would have 10 songs. I would have 10 great songs in one genre that all really work for that genre, and go like that. Absolutely. Chris says, I can only work alone in a home studio, no live players. How much does that restrict my opportunities? Well, it depends on how good you are, Chris. Actually, you know what? I work at home alone in the studio, except I work online with my players. I attend sessions in Nashville, and if you email me, I can tell you how you can do that. It's not that expensive, and I know the people that you can talk to, and they would love the work, and they would love to work with you. And you do not have to leave your home studio. You can watch them right on the screen as they track, and I do it just about every month. No destination, really. Okay. Is corporate music in its current style of muted guitars and reverse piano transitions going to change in style soon? I doubt it. I think it's something that is useful for corporate type of presentations and for background music for YouTubers. You know, we don't think enough about what people need. All we think about is what we like and what we want to make. And all of this, like I said at the very beginning of this, This is about music for use, and it's not about music for you. This sync licensing, especially, is about how a company, how a TV show, how a movie, how a advertiser, how a gaming company, or if it's in stock music, how a YouTube creator or how a presentation presenter can find what they need. And guess what? A lot of times, what they need is corporate music. They need and they just need a background type of tune, and corporate music fits that probably better than any other genre. And so I think that that is what people need, and they're going to continue to need them. And so, absolutely, I think it's going to stay around. I think it's possible the quality may have to continue to be high for sure, and that's going to be a problem for some people who don't want to do that kind of style. But I think you can add in and Steve in his Production Music Academy has some great ideas for ways to do corporate music with like lo-fi, or ways to do corporate music with different things. And so check out Steve's Production Music Academy. You can find that on my notes right now, because that link's always in the links below. So is Jesse's, by the way, in the links below. JMO says, "Hey Eric, when do you upgrade your equipment and invest in better plugins?" All the time. I upgraded my Native Instruments Ultimate Suite recently, and I have more than I can have space to download, and it's all very useful, and it all plugs in right here with this Native Instruments S61, which is excellent. And it works also well with this new controller I've got, which is this is relatively new. I sold my old 88-note keyboard and bought the M-Audio Hammer Pro, and I'm still learning it, but it also has a lot of controls. You can't really see it. It's out of the picture a little bit, but it's very colorful. Got a lot of things in there. But my next upgrade really is hard drives, to be honest with you, JMO. I've got to get hard drive space for all my samples so I can use them all. But then again, I just did a thing completely in Logic recently, and it really just rocked. Logic is amazing. So if you're trying to figure out what DAW to get and you're low on plugins, Logic is probably the one you want to go with as far as to get great plugins that come with it. Malux says, "Do you think for a beginner it's better to start applying to small boutique libraries or giants like BMG Universal?" In my experience, all of the above. You really don't apply to Sony, BMG, or Universal. You apply to you send emails to companies who are associated with them, that are tied with them, and that's what I've done. So I'm not technically sending stuff to Sony, BMG. I'm sending it to a library who has distribution through Sony, BMG, and that's important to have. But I also have a boutique library that's just one guy, and he's the guy who yesterday sent me a brief for a $5,000 opportunity. So boutique libraries are super powerful as well. And then I have a library that's kind of in the middle. Stevie B says corporate music has evolved more EDM influence these days. Yeah, see, they're already. And Steve knows because he's killing corporate music and makes some nice money off of that through different libraries. Certainly higher quality these days. And yeah, so anyway, getting back to sync. And I want to just make this one tiny little veer off here about Spotify and YouTube and DSPs. I have plans, and I've already started putting all my music up to Spotify and DSPs, as well as YouTube this year. Music can be found anywhere by anybody in any way. And music supervisors, sync agents, clients, like I said, that company last year, the company last year that wanted to buy a song for 30 grand found us on Spotify, found the song on Spotify and got in touch with me that way. So it's entirely possible something might take off in a curated playlist. It might be take off on a TV show, and then people go to they use Shazam on their phone to find out the song, and they go and it becomes a big hit on a playlist on Spotify or something like that. So I definitely suggest that you put up your music. Now, if you're already with a library, you should check with your library first, but most libraries don't mind. At least the three I'm with don't mind. They probably do, but they tell me it's up to me if I want to put them on Spotify, which I do. All right, so now let's get to what I talked about at the beginning of this, and that is finding libraries. How do you find libraries? Everyone wants to know, how do I find sync libraries to put my music on? I've been waiting for you to talk about this. It's live, so I can't go ahead. If you're watching this not live, you'll be able to just go ahead. But this is what everybody wants to know. It's what I wanted to know. And at first, I got involved in a company that talked about pitching directly to music supervisors, directly to sync agents. And you can do that. But I'm not going to talk about that because Jesse did a great video about that yesterday, just yesterday. So go down to his channel in the notes below. I'll put the link to the actual. Actually, I'm going to link you to a few of his videos, but that one, why libraries are probably a better bet than directly to music supervisors. Now, I think if you are a person like I interviewed in an interview I did with Tamara Bubble, where she is just a rock and roller promoter. She has just got a fire in her belly like nobody I've ever met before, and she has made all those. Yeah, thanks, Dee. She has made all of those contacts already. So she has a list of people to send her songs to as she finishes them. And when you have 100 or hundreds of music supervisors and sync agents at your fingertips to listen to your stuff, well, then it gets to be a little bit different of a game. But than just approaching one person at a time. Do you like this song? Do you like this song? Do you like this song? And so Jesse has a great video on that I'll link to. But as far as finding libraries, my answer to the question is it's not rocket science. And here's why. Number one, you have this thing. Everybody who's watching this has this thing called Google. And you can do a search and find anything you want. Now, if you do a search for sync libraries on Google, you're going to come to things like Artlist. And I did this last night. So you're going to find some of what Steve and I call the mid-tier libraries that are probably sending stuff to TV, but they also do stock music as well. But the kind of libraries we're talking about are things like, and I'm just going to give one away right now. Here's your little tip for today, scorekeepers.com. If you are looking for a library that is an exclusive library and you want to start and dip your toes in, I think Scorekeepers is a great one. I'm with them and I've had lots of things accepted by them. They are super great to work with. It is exclusive and they curate very, very carefully. So not everybody's going to get into that library, but and there are some people who are going to look at that library and say, you know what, I don't think that's the one for me. And so that's cool too. Another way to find music libraries is to research libraries using the musiclibraryreport.com. And I think I've got that link below. If I don't, I will put it below. But that is a great place that I have used through the years. You can join for a week, you can join for a month, you can join for a year. I usually join about every now and then for a week just to scour the libraries and find stuff. Now, there's a lot there. I mean, a lot, like a lot, as our friend Tamara would say. But you might want to use it as a constant resource to weekly look for libraries. It's not that expensive, and it's really great to find stuff there. Let's see here. Like I said, the music library report thing is down below, and then Jesse at syncmymusic.com, and you'll find Jesse's link below in the description. He has a great video that I'm going to put probably first in the description down below. It's called How to Find Music Libraries 100% on Your Own. And he talks about it all the time and he pushes people to this. But he also has a music directory that I bought a few years ago. And it's a great resource, folks. If you're looking for the libraries, this is where they are. And you can find that at his site at syncmymusic.com/music directory. This video is not sponsored by Jesse, and I don't even think he sponsors videos, but I just have found that this directory is the best thing that you could probably find to really start going out and finding those. Okay, let me catch up here a little bit. Bradford Knights, greetings from Arizona. Greetings. I watch you and Stevie B all the time. Listen to your podcast. Oh, thanks so much. That's great to know. Songwriter, producer with 10,000 plus song backlog. Wow. Impressive. Just retired and getting ready to start dumping songs to libraries. Well, Good. Make sure that you are dumping quality, and making sure that you have great quality in these libraries, that you're getting these 10,000 plus songs. But I know the feeling, and it's a good time. I still think it's a good time. Maybe it was a better time 5 or 10 years ago, before the rush, but then again, the world has exploded with media since 5 years ago. There wasn't Disney Plus, there wasn't Prime, there TV, there wasn't. I don't even know how big Netflix was 5 years ago. So we're in a different world, folks. Pip Haywood, hey, thanks, Pip, for coming in. What are your thoughts on the whole blockchain system, NFTs? How do you think it'll pan out within the production music industry? Looking forward to it. Scared. I don't have a I don't I'm not a, I don't have a dog in that fight yet. I did a great interview with Tom Dupree that you can find Tom's channel below. I believe I have his link below in the description, but I'll have a link to it here later after this goes, after we're live. But I find that, and Tom knows all about this stuff. Tom Dupree the third, he talks about it all the time in his videos. Great resource for NFTs. I just don't know. I have not heard that word. I've not heard NFTs mentioned once in sync licensing so far. But blockchain, I don't know. Blockchain slash Bitcoin, all that stuff is a little like PayPal 20 years ago. Maybe it'll grow into what PayPal is now, where everybody accepts it. Maybe it won't. So we'll have to just wait and see. No destination really. I'm just wondering if, since there's so much in that same style right now, that maybe shifting into a slightly different style that is still corporate would be good move for a composer. Yeah, maybe it would. You can use the corporate structure and do different types of genres, like jazz or pop or rock or reggae or anything like that. But remember, the reason corporate works so well is because it sits behind people talking well. It sits behind corporate presentations. They call it corporate for a reason, because it sits behind things well. So whatever genre you want to do, whatever style you want to do, you can do. But there's a reason corporate works. I did my whole thesis. Well, it wasn't a thesis, but I did a paper for my music theory class in my master's, my very last paper I did. I'm going to put it online because everybody wants to read it, but it was a paper on corporate music. And I defined the reason why it works. And I used examples, the top 10 Audio Jungle ones. And again, this is getting into stock music, and I don't necessarily want to talk about it in this video, but yeah, it's possible. D Brizzy, are they mid-tier? I guess you're talking about Scorekeepers. No, they're not mid-tier. I think Scorekeepers is uh, an exclusive library for television and things like that. I saw me MLR a long time ago, was never bothered to join. Music Library Report. You should. It's a good library. There's a lot of people who read it, and the guy who runs it is a great job. And he's a composer himself who continues to get a lot of placements, and so he knows what he's talking about, and he runs it as a labor of love. It's not a huge money-making thing. I mean, it's not very much money. So, and they run specials all the time. Leandro Bastos, thank you for joining. Any chance for vocal hard rock metal songs in the sync space? Of course, and in stock, but in sync. Heck yeah, metal is really used, and hard rock stuff. Just make sure when you do that, that you also always have instrumental versions of these as well. I've got a metal artist brand that I work for all the time, and one of the things that we are getting ready to push is, actually, you can find it on our site, positivespinsongs.com. We have something called instrumentals that is just instrumental versions of the metal stuff that we've been doing. So I'm still pushing that as a library, but absolutely. JMO, how many years until it can become a full-time income? Good question. And the answer is probably it's going to take 3 to 10 years, depending on your output. Like I said earlier in the video, you've really got to have probably 1,000 to 2,000 for this to become an income where it approaches what would replace what you have. And 1,000 songs is almost like $1 million to a person. Some people can create, and I have I'm blessed just to be working on a lot of music all the time. That's all I do, is work on original songs and songs for clients. So I always have a lot of music to pitch to libraries, or I have clients who are interested in pitching music and coming up with new music. So that is basically um, uh, what I'm doing all the time. So I have a lot, and I continue to put a lot in, and that's what it's going to take to get to that point. Like right now, even though I have 100 to 200 songs in these 3 exclusive libraries, I've made 0 um, so far, but I've only had them in the libraries, literally had them in the libraries where they could be found for 3 to 6 months. Well, maybe 6 to 9 months, but they've got to have time to be there and found and then used and then get upfronts and then get PRO payments. Even if I had something used today, I wouldn't see the upfront for another 3 months, and I wouldn't see the back end for another 9 months. So it's such a long game, JMO, that you really have to be putting stuff in there, so much stuff. You just have to have so much in there that is found. Now, if one big thing happens, of course, that could change those things. But usually, the advice and logic is that it's a long game. Bradford says, is there an industry standard as far as quality of the song with regards to bit rate sample depth? Yes. It's basically 2448. 24-bit, 48K seems to be, that is the audio for video right now. The standard for high def video is 2448. Now, I was listening to a podcast yesterday. If you've ever listened to Bobby Owsinski, who is terrific, and you should be listening to his podcast if you are in the music industry. But Bobby says everything should be 96K. And I don't think my machine can handle 96K for everything. But he even thinks it could be 192K in the future very soon. But as far as what we're talking about, I've not had any library want anything higher than 48K so far, not one. So 2448 is the answer there, Bradley. All right, so I've given you, as far as after Jesse's directory, which I still think is the best thing, and Music Library Report, if you're just looking for 2 easy places to go and find library stuff. Now, Music Library Report, I will tell you that they focus also a lot on stock and non-exclusive libraries, and that may not be what you're looking for in the sync space, but they talk about sync directories as well. But Jesse's is fully, and Jesse's stuff has a few of things that are would be considered into the stock or royalty-free side. But those are the best 2 resources I can direct you to. After that, just watch videos about sync library owners. Watch this channel. Watch any channel you can find. Watch Jesse's channel, and find out when you hear them talking to somebody or you're watching something. There's also some great sync agent channels like Mark Frazier at his place. I can't think of his syncsummit.com. SYNC summit.com. He's got great information for people, and he's more of a sync. He is exactly a sync agent, which means you are pitching yourself to him, and he is finding opportunities for you, and then getting paid for that. But he's super great. And then after you find these libraries that you want to pitch to, and you've gone through their website, and you say, yes, I see that they have a need for what I want. And Shane, this is exactly what I'm talking about, how you pitch music for TV and film. And I'm talking about pitching to libraries or even a music supervisor or a sync agent, whoever you're pitching to, and you're writing an email to them to send them a link where they can stream your music. Make sure that it's a short email, 3 sentences. Hi, I found your information, blah, 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 blah. I think my music would be great for you because, and here's a link where you can find my music, a streaming link. No, you're not sending them any MP3s. You're not sending them to Spotify because they may not have Spotify. I mean, they probably have Spotify, but still, don't send them to a paid site. SoundCloud's even a little risky now because of all the ads on SoundCloud. So you're going to want to really send them to something. SoundCloud's fine. I got my first deals using SoundCloud. I still use SoundCloud a little, but Disco is probably the better one to use. Or maybe you might have your own streaming links on your site, but send them streaming links, but make the email very, very short if you can, because these people don't have time to read your life story, and they will just move on if you try. And if you attach links, if you attach MP3s, a lot of times that's a kiss of death. So don't do that. Hey DH, thanks for joining. Man, we still got 29 people in here. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for being with me. All right, so that's really the big secret as far as finding libraries. That's how I found them. Again, I watched a lot of YouTube, just like Steve does, just like I did. I watched a lot of channels like mine. And so I'm just always looking for more connections. I'm looking for more music libraries. I'm looking for more possible outlets for songs. Of course, I am working closely with my libraries that I have, but I'm also looking for the next libraries. Now, right now, I'm not, because I've got so much to catch up on the libraries that I have to get stuff done for them. But so far, I'm in 25 different exclusive and non-exclusive libraries that I work putting stuff in weekly. Some of those are stock libraries that I don't feed as much anymore because they've either slowed down or I haven't had much sales in them. But you can be too. It's not hard. I've got a course coming out about all the non-exclusive and stock libraries, and that's about 50 libraries in there. And at some point, I'll be making a course about the sync stuff too. But this whole video is really a course that I would teach in sync music. So you can just watch this from the beginning if you're coming in live and you want to know more. JMO says, how important is having expensive monitors? Not that important. I think the key to having great monitors is knowing what they translate, how they translate out into the world. So if you mix on your monitors and then you go to headphones and it sounds completely different, then you're doing something wrong with whatever monitors you are. I've had Genelecs before that are top of the line Genelecs, and I mix something that sounds great on there, and I go to my car or whatever, and it sounds terrible. And that's because Genelecs are so good that you're hearing something that's not even true. You're hearing not even real world sound. So I'm not sure expensive monitors are the most important thing. I think your ears, and then having 3 places to check your mixes is important. I check it here on the speakers, and they're kind of cheap JBLs, and then kind of mid-range Sennheiser headphones. These are not terrible, but they're not super high-end headphones. And then I have a set of other headphones I check mixes on. So all 3, and then if it sounds good in all 3, then we're good to go. Bradford Knights, what books, if any, are out there to read about this? There is a sync book. I'll try to put it in the description, or you can email me about that at MakeMusicIncome@gmail.com. If anybody has any questions about any of this, and you want to ask me some questions, you can find me there. And remember, our website is MakeMusicIncome.com, and you can find information on how to get in contact with us there if you have any specific questions that I can't answer. But yeah, there is a book written for the sync market. There's several. But remember, everybody's focus is going to be different. Some people are going to say the only way to do sync licensing, like Tamara, she thinks the only way to do sync licensing is the way she's having success at it. And she's right for her, because she's got the contacts. She goes directly to the people who need the music and pitches her songs. I go to libraries and put my music in lots of libraries, and that's how I play the game. And so I haven't read any of these books yet, but I'll look at that and see if I can find that. But Bradford, please email me at MakeMusicIncome@gmail.com, and I'll try to find out the name of those books and get that to you. Chris says, how often do you get requests to alter the tracks you've put up to suit a particular application? Not often. Usually that part comes when I am a library has accepted the songs and they need different alt mixes, and so I will give them the alt mixes, and that's how they ask for differences. In other words, they say, okay, I like this song, I need an instrumental, I need one without the melody, I need one without the drums, I need one with that. And the library will curate what they need or think they need. And I have another library who says, just send me the Logic session, I'm going to mix it, and then I'll have everything I need should the client come back and want something different. So that's really where it happens. It usually happens at the time of submitting the tracks to the library. Bradford says, I have her book From Sync to Superstar. Hey, From Sync to Superstar is one of the best books I've read about sync. And it's absolutely great, and I'm glad you got that because man, what a great story. JMO says, "Do you master your own songs?" I do now for the most part, yeah. And with one library, I don't even have to do that. I just send him the session, like I just said, and he finishes it out. Um, now I didn't always, and if I had the time and the money, I wouldn't now. I would hand it to my mastering guy I've been using for 20 plus years. And but that was really, I think, professional mastering is something that we did for albums because we had 10 songs that all had to sound similar to each other. And I think now we're doing more single type based stuff. So it's not as important that every song is mastered exactly to the other ones. But if you have an album, it's good to have consistent mastering and have a good mastering chain that works for you. But I use a couple wave plugins and or isotope, uh, the isotope on Ozone, and those are the two that the ones that I may use. But I'm not doing a ton of over mastering, and I think a lot of people get too far into really changing their mix. It's better to mix as you go, master as you go, kind of, and then put a little final mastering on it. You shouldn't have to like change the world when you're mixing. Let's see here. Dane Colfax Stevenson, thanks for joining. I have trouble packaging tracks as stems. Do you recommend paying a service to professionally get this done? Packaging tracks as stems. Do you mean you have trouble making the stems, or you have trouble making a zip of them? I'm not understanding your packaging. If you mean making stems, yeah, that's a process for sure. But as far as packaging or zipping them, that shouldn't be that much of a process. And then using something like Dropbox to deliver them. But if you can, give me a little bit more on that. Jim Stamper says, "Is anyone mixing to LUFS instead of RMS? Do the libraries care?" Not really. There's a loudness kind of acceptance level. It seems everyone's wanting stuff pretty loud. I'm not an engineer. I'm a producer, so I don't pay attention to LUFS and RMS and stuff. I just know what I know, and everything is about minus 5 dB, minus 0.5 dB is where I top out everything at. So, but I also try really hard, Jim, to keep a lot of dynamics in my mixes. Everything is not just pegging at the top. But as far as LUFS, that's just depending on different people have thoughts about LUFS and different people have thoughts about dB and stuff like that. And I've always mixed to dB, and LUFS is relatively new to me over the past 10 years. So I just know what I know and where I put stuff. So that's probably something that Stevie B could answer a little better than me. Stevie, if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to put a comment on for Jim. Dane Colfax Stevenson. Oh, yes, both. Okay, well, first, making stems is not easy. It's, I mean, you don't have to really get into too big a thing. Think in big time groups: drums, bass, guitars, keyboards, vocals. That's 5 stems, and stems shouldn't be that extensive. You shouldn't have like 20 stems. You should only have, they call them stems so they can easily bring up the bass or bring up the drums or bring up the vocal or bring up the the keys or whatever. Sometimes if you have strings, maybe that's one. But that's how you make those different mixes. And then the second part of that is, once you have those 5 to 10 stems, you just zip them. If you're on Mac, you use the compress thing. You right click and you compress it. If you're on PC, you archive it, I believe, and you just make a zip file, and then you upload that zip file to Dropbox and you send it. Shane Jackson, thanks for being here, Shane. Can you use samples from sources like Ableton, Native Instruments, royalty-free in music you're pitching for sync placements? Yes, especially Ableton, Native Instruments, Logic, things like that, where you're using loops and stuff. I mean, Jesse's also done a video on this. Steve and I have talked about this, and Steve talked about this recently in some of his videos. You got to be careful, because if you use something too to the point where the logic of content ID or royalty, the whatever is listing to your songs on YouTube or Spotify or whatever, sometimes those can misidentify songs because of really overused samples. But I think the things that come with Ableton and Logic and native instruments are more like instruments. And where I think you really have to be careful is in the output arcade and splice worlds. And there are a lot of people talking about this right now in their videos where you've got to be very careful about that, I think. So yeah, be careful. In sync, they will be a little iffy about some samples, because if they think it's something everybody can use and everybody is using, then it might be they might get a little freaked out by a vocal sample that sounds a little too much like a sample that could be tagged by content ID or something like that. JMO, do you record your real piano for your piano sync tracks? No, I use this and use Keyscape and Ivory. Yeah, I imagine it would stand apart from other VST tracks. No, I mean, I don't think recorded guitar or recorded piano or recorded drums or anything like that stands out from VST tracks. I think sometimes real strings and orchestral stuff can stand out from that from samples. And sometimes real strings are, to be honest with you. So should stems and edits be available when sharing links for pitching to libraries or supervisors? It depends. I don't think you have to make stems for every single thing you make, because not everybody wants them. Like I said, my one library just wants the logic file, and he'll make his own stems if he needs them. And then scorekeepers will ask me sometimes to send different versions of the song, but they won't necessarily want stems. So far, I haven't run into a library that wants stems. You have to think they have thousands and thousands of songs, and each of those songs may have different versions. So if they had to have store stems for everything, that would just be a lot. And so certainly music supervisors don't always need stems, but they will ask you if they do. So I wouldn't worry about making the stems until you get to the place where you're really pitching. So okay, so well, folks, that's about all I had to talk about in this one. Man, we've gone for an hour and 21 minutes, and I really appreciate everyone who's been here. If you like hanging out like this and you'd like to talk to me personally, make sure, again, that you look at our mastermind on the MakeMusicIncome.com site. It's MakeMusicIncome.com/mastermind. It's in the description below, and it's a Zoom meeting. It's like this, except you're talking to me and asking questions, and we're talking to each other and sometimes looking to each other. Hey, Leandro, thanks for being here. Ronan, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Dane says, I've been using a new sound, pedal steel guitar. Ooh, I'd like to know about that. Is there a market for this? Not country, rather dark mood. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Richard, man, thanks for being here. Good to see you. Pip, thanks for being here. I appreciate it, everybody. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to do this every Thursday, I think, at 11 a.m. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and get the reminder that we're going to do this. And hey, Chris, thanks very much. Nice to have a friendly person in the chat. So I so appreciate all the questions, and it's so much fun to talk about it. And Malix, thanks so much. Cheers. And thanks so much, everybody, for being here. I'm going to wrap it, and we'll see you on the next one. And everybody, I hope you have a great day. And if there's anything you want to ask me, again, you can contact me at MakeMusicIncome.com, email MakeMusicIncome@gmail.com. And I hope that you have fun making some great music this week that can make you some music income. We'll see everybody next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.